Have you ever noticed that two people can be the same age, and yet one is struggling and the other is thriving? One is traveling, exercising, volunteering, enjoying grandchildren, and making plans for the future. The other is dealing with fatigue, weight gain, aching joints, medications, and wondering where their energy went. Why is that? Welcome to the channel where mature adults, especially baby boomers, learn to be better prepared for the future and to live happier, healthier, stronger, and perhaps even longer. I'm Dr. Nalani Valentine, and today I'd like us to have a conversation about one of the most overlooked threats to healthy aging. More importantly, let's talk about what we can do about it. My goal isn't to frighten you. It is to help you prepare your life and health for the unexpected. That's really what this conversation is about. Not fear, preparation. I don't believe growing older automatically means growing weaker. I believe many people are confusing the effects of aging with the effects of years of declining metabolic health. Those are two very different things. If that's true, it changes everything. It means that many of the problems we've accepted as just getting older deserve a second look. Fatigue, brain fog, weight gain, high blood pressure, difficulty losing weight, an expanding waistline, and loss of energy. Many people simply blame all of those on age. I don't. Today, we're having a conversation about one of the most overlooked reasons those changes occur. It's called insulin resistance. By the time our conversation comes to an end, you'll understand what insulin resistance is, why it affects so many people, how it influences nearly every organ in the body, and most importantly, what you can begin to do to improve your metabolic health and prepare your life and health for the unexpected. My goal isn't simply to give you information. You get a lot of that. You get plenty of information from all kinds of sources. My goal is to give you understanding. When you understand what's happening inside your body, you can make decisions with confidence instead of confusion. Let's begin. One of the reasons insulin resistance is so widely misunderstood is that most people have only heard insulin mentioned in connection with diabetes, and that's understandable. For many years, that's how it has been discussed. The reality is that insulin does far more than regulate blood sugar. It is involved in the way we produce energy, store energy, build muscle, repair tissue, and even influence the health of many of our organs. Before we can understand insulin resistance, we first need to understand insulin. Most people know that insulin has something to do with blood sugar, and that's true, but it's only part of the story. Insulin is one of the body's most important hormones. A hormone, of course, is simply a chemical messenger that carries instructions from one part of the body to another, telling the cells what they need to do. Every time you eat, your digestive system begins breaking food down into nutrients your body can use. One of those nutrients is glucose. Glucose is a simple sugar that becomes one of your body's primary sources of energy. Your bloodstream carries that glucose throughout your entire body. Now, another remarkable process begins. The pancreas releases insulin into your bloodstream. One of the easiest ways to think about insulin is as a messenger standing at the door of each cell. Many people describe insulin as a key, and that's a useful illustration. because it helps us visualize what happens. Picture one of your body's cells as your home. Glucose has arrived with something your cell needs. It has energy. Insulin knocks on the door and signals that it's time to let the glucose in. And the cell responds, the door opens, and glucose enters. Energy is produced. That process takes place thousands of times every second throughout your body. Your muscles depend on it. Your brain depends on it. Your heart depends on it. Every organ depends on a steady supply of energy to perform this duty. As long as that communication remains healthy, your body functions remarkably well. The difficulty begins when the cells stop responding as efficiently as they once did. Imagine someone knocking on your front door. The first time, you answer immediately. A little later, someone else knocks again, and this time you wait. Eventually, you stop responding altogether. That's a simple picture of what begins happening inside the body. The pancreas continues producing insulin, and insulin continues delivering its message. The cells simply don't respond the way they used to. So, in other words, when things don't go well, it's not that it's going to stop producing. It just continues to give you that output of insulin, 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 and yet the cells are not responding the way they once did. That is insulin resistance. Your pancreas responds the only way it knows how. It produces more insulin in an effort to persuade the cells to respond. And for a while, that strategy works. Blood sugar may remain completely normal. And that's one reason insulin resistance often gets unnoticed for many years. Many people are told that their blood sugar is fine. That's what happened to me. I had some insulin resistance, most of us do. And I didn't know it because I had my blood tested, and they said, your sugar is fine. Your glucose, in fact, is on the low end. Yet, there was something else going on with the insulin. What they aren't told is that their pancreas may be working much harder than it should. Think about driving your car up a very long, steep hill, and you may still be traveling at 60 miles an hour. From the outside, everything appears normal, and your engine, though, tells a different story. It's working much harder to maintain that speed. The same thing can happen inside the body. Blood sugar may still appear normal while the pancreas is producing larger and larger amounts of insulin to keep it there. That brings us to two laboratory tests that many people have never heard of, and one is called a fasting insulin test. Unlike a routine blood sugar test, a fasting insulin test measures how much insulin your pancreas is producing after you've gone without food overnight. Some healthcare professionals also calculate something called the HOMA-IR. Those stand for Homeostatic Model Assessment of Insulin Resistance. Don't worry about remembering the name. The important part is what it tells us. HOMA-IR combines your fasting blood sugar and your fasting insulin into a calculation that estimates how hard your pancreas is working to keep that blood sugar under control. Think of it as another way of looking beneath the surface. Sometimes it reveals insulin resistance years before diabetes develops. And that doesn't mean that everyone needs the test, though. It does remind us that normal blood sugar doesn't always tell the whole story. One of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation is that many people don't discover insulin resistance until much later than they needed to. And knowledge gives us choices. The earlier we recognize a problem, the earlier we have an opportunity to correct it. Fortunately, insulin resistance doesn't happen overnight. It develops over time. And that naturally leads us to our next question. What causes healthy cells to become resistant to insulin in the first place? One of the questions I hear most often is what causes insulin resistance? The answer isn't as simple as pointing to one food or one habit. Insulin resistance usually develops over many years. It is the result of many small changes that gradually influence the way our cells respond to insulin. Think about your own life for a moment. None of us wakes up one morning having suddenly developed insulin resistance. The body changes gradually over time. 1 year becomes 5. 5 years become 10. And the body has an amazing way to adapt to the way we live. And that's one of the most remarkable things about the human body. It is always adapting. We change our muscles. If we work at them, they become stronger. If we don't, they become soft and weaker. If we spend weeks in bed because of an illness, like I did, those same muscles become, like I used to say, like soft spaghetti. That's an exaggeration, of course. However, they do become very soft and weak. And if we practice a musical instrument, our brain develops new connections. And it's the same way with learning a language. Whatever we learn, if we do it consistently, the brain is going to make wonderful connections. I love that. The body is constantly responding to the messages that we send it, and the same principle applies to our metabolism. Every meal sends a message. Every night of sleep sends a message. Every walk sends a message. Stress sends a message. Physical activity sends a message. Even sitting for long periods sends a message. Over time, those messages influence how well our cells respond to insulin. One of the biggest contributors to carrying excess body fat, particularly around the abdomen, is because of all of those messages. This isn't about appearance, it's about biology. The fat around our waist is different from the fat that we can pinch beneath the skin or on our arms or our legs. Scientists call it visceral fat. It surrounds the visceral organs. And it's another term many people haven't heard of before. Like I said, that visceral fat surrounds your organs such as the liver, the pancreas, and the intestines. Unlike the fat beneath the skin, visceral fat is biologically active. It releases substances that promote inflammation and interfere with the way insulin communicates with our cells. Now, when I use the word inflammation, I'm not talking about the redness and the swelling that you see after cutting your finger, because that's also inflammation. Is a different type of inflammation. I'm talking about a low level of ongoing irritation inside the body. You can't see it, and you usually can't feel it. Over time, however, it influences the health of many organs. It also makes it more difficult for insulin to do its job. Another contributor is the modern lifestyle itself. Many of us spend hours sitting. We drive instead of walking. We sit at the computer. We watch television. We spend more time indoors than our previous generations, and our bodies were designed to move. Movement isn't simply exercise. It is part of normal human living. Every time your muscles contract, they use that glucose. That's one reason that even a short walk after a meal can be so beneficial. Your muscles help remove glucose from the bloodstream. We'll talk more about that later in our conversation. Sleep is another piece of the puzzle. Many people are surprised to learn that poor sleep affects much more than energy. Sleep influences hormones. It influences appetite. It influences the way our bodies respond to insulin. After several nights of inadequate sleep, the body often becomes less responsive to insulin. And the same thing can happen during periods of ongoing stress. Now, we know that stress is a part of life. None of us escapes it. The question isn't whether we'll experience stress. The question is, how often will we remain in that state? And that's why in our Think Well playlist, I have ways that we can just slow your roll, slow it down, breathe deeply, and relax. When stress becomes chronic, the body releases hormones that help us to respond to immediate challenges. And those hormones are valuable when we're facing a genuine emergency. Living in that state day after day places additional demands on the body, and our modern world makes that surprisingly easy. Many people wake up already feeling stressed. They hurry through breakfast. They spend much of the day sitting. Meals are eaten quickly, and sleep becomes shorter. And the next day begins the same way, week after week, month after month, year after year, and the body continues to adapt. One reason I often remind people that health isn't about being perfect, and it's not built by just one decision. It's built by thousands of little decisions made over a lifetime. And that's also why I developed the New Life Live Well method. It isn't a diet. It isn't a 30-day challenge. It's a way of living that prepares the body over time. We're not going to explore that method today too deeply because each of its foundations deserves a conversation of its own. Yet that's the foundation of this channel, the method. For now, I simply want you to see that insulin resistance doesn't usually develop because of one isolated event. It develops as our bodies respond to the way we've been living. The encouraging part of that statement is this: if the body can adapt in one direction, it can often adapt in the other direction as well. That doesn't happen overnight. It does happen, though. We'll talk about that in just a little while. First, I want to show you something that surprises almost everyone. Insulin resistance does not stay in one part of the body. It affects everywhere, just about everywhere. A whole body connection. One of the biggest misconceptions about insulin resistance is that it is simply a blood sugar problem. It isn't. By the time we're finished with this section, I think you'll see why I believe insulin resistance deserves far more attention than it receives. When insulin isn't working efficiently, every cell that depends upon insulin is affected in one way or another. That's why I often tell people that insulin resistance is not confined to one organ. It influences the entire body. Let's begin with the brain. Have you ever walked into a room and forgotten why you went there? Oh boy, here we go, right? How many times have I done that? That happens to everyone from time to time. I'm talking about something different. So that's not what we're talking about here. I'm referring to the gradual loss of mental sharpness that many people simply accept as part of aging. Difficulty concentrating, trouble remembering names, brain fog, slower thinking. There are many possible reasons for those changes, and only one of them, though, is poor metabolic health. Your brain is an energy-demanding organ. Although it represents only a small percentage of your body weight, It uses a tremendous amount of energy every day. And when insulin signaling becomes less efficient, the brain may not use glucose effectively as it once did. Researchers have spent years exploring the relationship between insulin resistance and cognitive decline. That research is still continuing today. One thing has become increasingly clear. What's good for metabolic health is often good for the brain as well. Now let's move to the heart. The heart, of course, never takes a day off. It beats every minute of every day for your entire life. That's remarkable when you stop to think about it. Healthy blood vessels allow oxygen and nutrients to reach every part of the body. Insulin resistance is often associated with several conditions that place additional stress on the entire cardiovascular system. High blood pressure, elevated triglycerides, lower HDL cholesterol, the good cholesterol, increased inflammation. Those changes don't occur overnight. They develop gradually. And once again, we see the importance of preparing our bodies before serious disease develops. Now let's look at the liver. The liver performs hundreds of different jobs. It helps regulate blood sugar, it processes nutrients, produces important proteins, it removes waste products, and stores vitamins as well. When insulin resistance develops, excess glucose is more likely to be converted into fat. And some of that fat accumulates inside the liver, and that can be dangerous. The result may be fatty liver disease. Many people have never heard of it. Others discover it accidentally during an ultrasound or some other imaging study. Early fatty liver disease often produces no symptoms at all. And that's one more example of why metabolic health deserves our attention long before obvious illness develops. And the kidneys are affected as well. Healthy kidneys continuously filter the blood, removing waste products while helping maintain the proper balance of fluids and minerals. Over many years, poorly controlled blood sugar and ongoing metabolic dysfunction can place tremendous stress on these remarkable organs. Protecting your metabolic health is also one way of protecting your kidneys. And let's not forget the muscles. Your muscles do more than help you move. They are one of the body's largest storage for glucose. When muscles are active, they remove glucose from the bloodstream and they use it for energy. And that's one reason physical activity is so valuable. Movement isn't simply burning calories. Movement helps restore healthy metabolism. We used to think calories in, calories out. If you eat a certain amount of calories and you just, quote, burn them up by exercising, then you're okay. Not so much. Because we're talking about metabolism, and that's more than just calories. We'll come back to that later because it's one of the most encouraging parts of this conversation. Finally, let's talk about the defense system. Many people don't immediately connect metabolic health with your defenses, what some call immunity. The connection is stronger than most people realize, though. A healthy immune system depends upon healthy cells, obviously. Healthy cells depend upon healthy metabolism. Everything is connected. I always say we're not a bunch of body parts. We're not a collection of body parts. We are one whole being, amazingly created. When I look back on my own experience with acute myeloid leukemia, I appreciate love that connection even more. My physicians repeatedly commented on the condition of my organs. They weren't complimenting me. They were making a clinical observation. They were really shocked, being in my mid-70s and saying that my organs were the organs of a 20-year-old. Healthy organs gave my body the ability to withstand treatment that many people my age simply could not tolerate. That's one reason I continue to encourage people to prepare their health before they know they'll need it. We don't build health for one laboratory test. We don't build health simply to reach a certain number on the scale. We build health because none of us knows what tomorrow's going to bring, and every health decision strengthens the foundation upon which tomorrow will be built. Notice I didn't say perfection. None of us lives perfectly. I certainly don't. What I do believe is that consistent, healthy choices repeated over many years place the body in a much stronger position when life becomes difficult. And that's exactly why this conversation is so important. Insulin resistance is not simply about avoiding diabetes. It's about preserving your independence, protecting your mind, supporting your heart, strengthening your muscles, helping your defense system to function well, and preparing your life and health for the unexpected. Could you have insulin resistance without knowing it? One of the reasons insulin resistance concerns me so much is that it usually develops quietly over many years, and most people don't wake up one morning and suddenly realize they're insulin resistant. The changes are gradual, and they're easy to dismiss, and they're often blamed on getting older. Here's a few questions I'm going to ask, if it's okay with you. Do you find yourself feeling unusually tired after a meal? Have you noticed that you become hungry again only a short time after eating? Do you crave sweets or foods high in carbohydrates, especially during the afternoon or evening? Has losing weight become much more difficult than it used to be, even though you're eating much the same way? Has your waistline gradually increased over the years? I know mine has. Do you sometimes struggle with mental fog or difficulty concentrating? Have your triglycerides increased? Has your HDL, which is the good cholesterol, become lower than it once was? And has your blood pressure gradually climbed? If you answered yes to one or more of those questions, it doesn't necessarily mean you have insulin resistance. It does suggest that it's worth having a conversation with your healthcare provider. One thing I encourage people to remember is that insulin resistance is not diagnosed by symptoms alone. Some people have very few symptoms, and others have several, and that's why laboratory testing can be so helpful. Many people are familiar with the fasting blood sugar test. Many have heard of the A1C, sometimes called hemoglobin A1C. The A1C is a blood test that estimates your average blood sugar over approximately the previous 3 months. It's a valuable test. It tells much more than what your blood sugar happens to be on one particular morning. Earlier in our conversation, I also mentioned a fasting insulin level and an HOMAIR, remember that? Which stands for Homeostatic Model Assessment of Insulin Resistance. Those tests may provide additional information in some situations because they can reveal that the pancreas is working harder than expected and when blood sugar is still within the normal range. Not everyone needs every laboratory test. Those decisions belong between you and your healthcare provider. My purpose today is simply to let you know that blood sugar alone doesn't always tell the entire story, and there's another sign I think deserves attention, and that is the circumference of your waist. Years ago, many of us focused almost entirely on body weight. Today, we know that where we carry excess body fat can be just as important as how much we carry. An expanding waistline often reflects an increase in visceral fat, the fat that surrounds the organs inside the abdomen. And as we discussed earlier, visceral fat is metabolically active. It's not just fat sitting there, it's chemically active. It releases substances that interfere with normal insulin function and contribute to chronic inflammation. This is not about fitting into a certain clothing size. It's about protecting the health of your organs. One of the things I've learned over the years is that our bodies often whisper before they begin shouting. A little less energy, a little more fatigue, a few extra pounds, a waistline that slowly expands, laboratory values that drift in the wrong direction. Those are the whispers that deserve our attention. They're opportunities. They give us time to respond before something serious develops. That's one reason I encourage people not to wait until they're diagnosed with diabetes before taking their metabolic health seriously. Preparation almost always gives us more options than reaction. If today's conversation has encouraged you to think differently about your health, then we've spent our time well. If you found value in our time together, I trust you'll subscribe to the channel and share this conversation with someone that you care about. You never know whose life may be changed by information shared at just the right time. Until next time, continue preparing your life and health for the unexpected, and take good care of yourself. I'll see you in the next conversation. Peace.